And moving on to the climax, we have last panel discussion for the day. We need a minute for a quick setup. And post that, we have award ceremony as well. Meanwhile, let me introduce our panel members and the moderator. Mr. Sunil Kulkarni, CISO, Protein eGov, what is it? eGovernment Technologies Limited. Mr. Avinash Dharmadhikari, CISO Persistent System. Mr. Vikram Dhanda, CISO 𝗘𝗱𝗶𝗁. Mr. Harsh Parikh, Head of Cloud Security Data Digital. And the session will be moderated by Mr. 𝗘𝗱𝗶𝗁, CISO HDFC Life.
Good evening. I saw that a very dull way. Good evening. Oh, wow. See, I know last sessions are always the worst sessions, right? Thing is, we are between you and the awards. We are between you and a lot of people trying to hit your homes back. I know the location has traffic challenges. We can see a lot of empty places. And it makes a thing a little difficult for us because when you see empty chairs, you feel, whom are you talking to? So then it might so happen that, we may stop looking at you altogether. We will just look at each other, and we don't want that to happen. But nevertheless, what we look forward is a very interactive session. There is always a good and a bad, right? I spoke about the bad, but what is the good on this? The good is we can have a highly interactive session, right? Now, it did not be something that 5 of us are having a conversation. Rather, we can make it to be something where you are an extended part of the panel, and let's have that interactions. Feel free to put your questions whenever we finish, whenever one of the speakers finish. If you think there is a question you would want to ask, you want to have some clarification, raise your hand, and if time permits, we'll definitely get back to you on that. If time doesn't permit, we'll be there, and we can always discuss about this offline as well, right? So with this, right, do we know the topic? Anyone? Cloud security, right? So you'd also realize if you look at, basically the speakers, they're all CISOs, right? And somebody whom we know the IT really loves so very badly, right? So, a husband and a wife relationship and the IT and CISO teams, relationships pretty much go in tandem, right? So can we say that we don't like each other? And if somebody says, 7 janam ek hi biwi milegi, how many of you would be happy? Not a single hand, so that's great. So we get there, right? But nevertheless, I think a very interesting topic. It's about cloud security and how is it relevant, how is it important in today's time, right? I think a couple of very quick statistics. NASSCOM, believes that in India, I think there will be 80% organizations which by 2026 will have some form of cloud presence. Now, it might look like, 80% is too high, right? Some of your organizations may not have embarked. But what is really alarming is it is growing at 3x time. As on 2022, it was about 40% organizations already have their presence. So if you're looking at 40% people having presence, 3x time, the growth, right? So this number of 80% doesn't look to be basically a number which may or may not be breached. I'm sure it will be breached. We will achieve that numbers. So that's a very interesting fact, right? The cloud adoption is increasing. What is also happening is complexity, right? When you look at cloud security or cloud, as infra leaders, you yourself know it is not basically like you order a server, you implement, you install it, you harden it, and it works. There are a lot of newer technologies. There are a lot of complexities that get added. You also know for sure that today organizations would go for multi-cloud strategy. You would have SaaS providers. So there is a lot of confusion. There is always what is it that we need to do and what is it that the others have, like even as IT people, even as a security, I would say, personnel, right, a community, there's always that ambiguity. Where does, where do you draw the line? Like Lakshman Rekha, right? Kaha pe hai? And where do we start? Where is, where are the responsibilities? Who will take an action? The worst thing is we know the story of somebody, anybody, everybody, nobody, right? So in cloud, everybody thinks it is everybody's responsibility and nobody does anything about it. That's the worst thing to happen on this. I think with that as a background, right, I would like to take it back now to our team. Sunil, with your experience, right, and Protean, helping clients, in their journey, right? If you could really talk about what is it which is cloud security, what are the strategies, your views, right, about cloud security, and kind of enlighten, the audience with your views.
Yeah, thank you, 𝗘𝗱𝗶𝗁𝗂𝗃. Hello, is audible? Yeah. The experience which I know, and again, as a prominent Protean, we also are a cloud service provider. So we also do provide services to the government and the relevant sectors. So as a strategy, before going to the strategy, the most important part which people or the companies don't understand is from a strategy point of, from a security point of view, that what is the type of cloud which they are into. They are going for, whether it is a platform as a service, whether it's an infrastructure as a service, or it's a SaaS model. So that is where they are not aware of what is their roles and responsibilities. Where is what is that they have to do it. They simply go and have some kind of an agreement, engagement letter which they sign it with the CSP, and they lack this kind of visibility from what is right for them and what is their role to ensure that those relevant components or controls are implemented. So as a strategy, the first is any company, they need to understand what is their role, what is their responsibility, what is they have to do it, what is they don't have to do it, what will be the CSP who will be doing it. Again, it is something not that they have to only put it across to the CSP that they will look after this entire thing, because as a customer, they also have to have a responsibility of ensuring that what CSP is doing, they are doing it correctly or not. That's also a very important part. From a strategy point of view, it is a very simple strategy. You need to first have those relevant protection mechanism, governance mechanism. You need to have the recovery mechanism. You need to respond to those relevant. If there's an incident, you need to respond to those. The BCP, DR, and those relevant components is part of the entire strategy. And that is what, whether it's a SaaS or whether it's a IaaS or it's a PaaS, that is where, as a strategy, you need to understand that part, and we need to have a framework around this entire the controls.
Great. I think, yeah, one very important thing is about the contract, right? The CSP. And I think Sunil, you also covered, the kind of service you're taking from your CSP, right? It's going to be extremely important. Yeah, so I have one more guest. Okay. So I think just taking it forward, right, Avinash, coming back to you, right, Sunil has at least, set a very good, kind of a context, right, that there are, there is a CSP who becomes now a very integral part of your journey, right? We understand, that the contract, understanding the roles and responsibility, the RASI metrics is going to be very important. Maybe you could throw some more light in terms of, what could be the mitigation, the migration strategy, and also touch upon some of the challenges and opportunities that are there when you look at cloud security that can really help our audience.
Okay, so I mean fundamentally cloud security or on-prem security, that really doesn't matter much. Security is security. So whatever, because of this pandemic, everybody, the way people were doing the business has drastically changed, and cloud has taken the focus. But if you look at the security requirement, essentially whether it is on-prem infrastructure or a cloud infrastructure, what is that you are trying to protect is your data, and you are also trying to protect against any kind of attack that can happen to you. And now if you compare like on-prem strategy, that you will have maybe offsite backup, you will have a DR sites outside the city. Same way if you look at the cloud, it is like you cannot depend on a single cloud. So you essentially first is like on the cloud, have you decided what kind of assets you are going to put in, what kind of risk that you are going to get exposed. So example could be, let's say that you are migrating your applications which were so-called on-prem are now going to get onto the cloud. So once it is put onto the cloud, it is going to be available publicly. Is that going to be right? Then do you want to look at something like called as zero trust architecture, where you will define architecture at the cloud that it is zero trust and only need to know basis access is provided. So essentially, when you migrate anything onto the cloud, your risk exposure is going to increase. So whatever, let's say, in on-prem, you will put behind the firewall and maybe just one IP is exposed. But when you migrate, let's say 20 application, then those 20 applications also are available on internet. Then that's where your internet exposure is going to increase. So first thing is that when you do the migration, look at your risk exposure that is going to go up, then define a risk mitigation strategy. So like, as I said, put a zero trust architecture, put a micro segmentation, only need to know basis application only will be published on internet, then all risk applications. So again, another challenge is that so far when things were on-prem, people will be using VPN, right? They will come through VPN and get access from anywhere. The moment it is migrated to the cloud, you will have to think of a different strategy. That's where I was talking about the zero trust. So challenges perspective, that one thing is that your exposure is going to go up. So in that case, do you have well-defined strategy for incident management? Do you have the well-defined DR strategy on some other cloud instead of, let's say, for example, if my primary workload is running on Azure, can I build my maybe backup on AWS? Those kind of strategies you have to do, because that's going to happen. The way it was happening for the on-prem, same kind of risk you are also going to have cloud. Even the cloud service provider also can go down. Okay, that's the second part that will come in terms of the risk perspective. Then from the end user perspective or from the endpoint perspective, because there also you are going to have servers, there also you are going to have the VMs created onto those cloud. I don't want you to differentiate between that endpoint versus the endpoint that you give to your user. Whatever security strategy you have applied, whatever endpoint controls you have applied, same kind of endpoint control security you must apply to those endpoints as well. That's where you will be able to see good benefit, and you have a better improved risk posture. Same kind of treatment also should be given to the data. So the moment that data is migrated to the cloud, you need to have the proper data classifications, data segregations, and data security strategy applied. Because one exposure onto the cloud can screw up the entire data. So you need to also equally focus on those data strategies that, okay, this data is secure. Because at the end of the day, what is we are trying to protect, as I said, that ransomware attack and a data security. These are the two objectives of a CISO who tries to protect. That's where the business runs. So focus on these strategies. That's where that risk and mitigation should come in. And from the opportunity perspective, one of the things is very common that nowadays people do not, at least in ITS sector, people do not want to come to office. Okay, and since they are not going to come to office, you cannot rely on just building office infrastructure and put infrastructure into your offices. That's where you'll have to bring in that scalability. Cloud is the best option. Cloud gives you flexibility, opportunity for growth. In fact, for last 18 months, we were working on the cloud migration project in Persistent. We migrated all our applications on cloud, and anybody can access from anywhere in the world. Okay, and my internet exposure is still zero. We implemented zero trust. Okay, so scalability, cloud is the best option that provides you the opportunity, and of course, over a period of time, cost also becomes a little bit concern. Okay, that's where you'll have to be very careful in terms of negotiating the contracts with your service provider for the cloud. Especially the cloud storage cost is very, very high. So you have to be very careful while negotiating and drafting those contracts, that what kind of data is going to reside on the cloud, and based on those negotiations, you should be doing it. From the responsive metrics, cloud provider will say that my platform will be, my response is only uptime. Security and everything is your responsibility. So you need to be very, very careful and clear about the role that you are going to deliver when you are going to use the cloud service providers. So these are the few thoughts that I want to share.
Thank you. I think one thing that Avinash I always admired is, you believe that keep it simple. And I do agree that anything in security cannot be rocket science. The hygiene parameters remain the same. Now, be it cloud, we're talking about a lot of AI, generative AI. The fundamentals are not going to change.
Absolutely.
It's just about applying them, for the new technology with some new jargons.
Absolutely.
Jargons gives, now, Harish, there are so many jargons, right? When you talk about cloud security today, we hear every day there is a new term, right? We started with the CASB, then CWPP, then CNAP, now it is CIEM, and it doesn't end, right? Every time a Gartner or IDC does an annual summit, right, or they do the predictions, we see there are 4 new terms bombarded, right? It's like a maze. And how many of you would agree that too many terms that we have created on technology? Either no one of us agree or at least one person is. Oh, great. We have complicated it, beyond a limit. So Harish, from your perspective, right? If and the fact that you manage cloud security for your organization, right? And Tata being again, one of the large firms, right? Could you kind of demystify and simplify, right? कि जब कोई बोलता है कि cloud security करना है, क्या करना है? Jargons बोलना है कि what is it to be like? Layman, basically consider me as a, who knows nothing about it. How do you convince me or how do you explain to me about security?
Okay. Thanks, 𝗘𝗱𝗁. So, with the start of this conversation, where 𝗘𝗱𝗁 said that the cloud adoption has been increased and it will go on increasing near down the line. So, looking towards that thing, multi-cloud environment is what everybody is adopting it, and our app right now, Tata Digital app, is completely on cloud native. We do not have any on-prem setup for an application development, and also includes multi-cloud environment. So while he rightly said there are so many technical jargons in the market to understand what do we implement, how do we implement. So I would have 6 key strategies that I have implemented. One, we call it as cyber security posture management, or we call it as cloud workload protection, where we enable the security and do the posture management of your security based on the recommendations and the controls that the posture management give to us. Second, we talk it about as CNAP, where CNAP talk about shift left approach, where your development and security operation goes hand in hand and develop your DevSecOps life cycle. And third thing is, do not exclude your compliance requirement. When you talk about compliance requirement, regulatory compliance is like PCI or ISO. Enable those PCI control, ISO control, monitor from a cloud solution perspective, as well as what you can do, you can also enable the compliance standards. Standards, when I talk about, are the industry best benchmark practices that we need to understand, are CS benchmark, NIST benchmark, and there are much more, depending upon your environment, you can enable. If you are European, you're dealing with European customers, enable your GDPR controls in place and start evaluating those controls and enable it one by one on the platform. Second, have your continuous assessment program. When I say continuous assessment program, consider your vulnerability management program, as well as regulatory compliance based on audits and vendor risk management you have to do. Third, have your strong identity access management in place. Decide who has what level of access, do we really need them? Because that's the first case where the cyber attack can happen. Somebody can break your identity and come into the picture, and if it has a high privilege role, so have an RBAC in place, do regular RBAC study, do regular assessment of user having what rights, do the user still existing in the environment or not. If those access are there, remove it. And plus also look towards not just an internal employee, but also look towards vendor risk management. If you are creating a guest account for your vendors on your platform, make sure you have an expiry defined to the vendor risk, either a 6 month or 3 months of tenure the vendor is accessing, so that the auto access get disabled and you do not need to worry about doing user access review again and again from that perspective. Next, I have XDR plus SIEM as a unified platform, so that the telemetry information from an XDR which collects entire cloud information, it just sends the security incident to my SIEM, where I correlate, have an intelligence on it, and run my entire security operation with a unified platform support. And have a regular incident response tabletop exercise, do your drills regularly to understand, so that you can spread the awareness across your stakeholders. And during the time of a major incident response, the stakeholders are aware about what real role they need to play around, like CISO, what they need to communicate, your branding team, marketing need to do PR communication, or HR need to do internal comms, and the rest of the internal team are aware about the roles and responsibility during the major incident response, and you can make it smooth. This is what best practices that we need to follow, and what I do.
Oh wow, this is great. Vikramji, the obvious next question is, we've heard, right, from all the speakers, right, in terms of the importance of cloud security, the technologies that really go into securing your cloud platform, right, or securing your data, right? Avinash covered, touched on a topic that today we live in a borderless, kind of a world, right? So organizations don't have the perimeter; it is borderless. So from that perspective, and we're saying that more and more companies have to adopt to the hybrid mode, where you have to allow your own employees. Also, we are seeing an era where you collaborate, you're partnering, with firms, right, where you see synergies. So from that perspective, right, and the fact that, a lot of data is going to reside in a cloud, what would be your thoughts, and can you share your vision in terms of how should organizations proceed further in securing their organization information assets?
Sure, and thank you for the question. So, sorry. So, security, cloud security is a very interesting field. And for many of us, it's quite an irritant as well. Because it demands very consistent efforts. It demands a lot of vigil to make sure things don't go wrong. But there's something that I tell my team. I tell them that regardless of what happens, don't feel bad about it. That the crooks are so smart, the regulations are so strong, you need to do so many things. I say that, look, it is because of all this that we have a job. Imagine if there were no bad people in the world. There would be nothing called a CISO. There was no need for one. So it's glad that this thing. And this is a different sort of field as well. It's a field in which two opposite sides of the spectrum push us in the same direction. One, of course, are the crooks. What's the other side of the spectrum? Any guesses, anybody? Who push us in the same direction as the crooks? It's the regulators and the government. So imagine this. It's a very unique partnership. The crooks and the government or the regulators coming together, asking us to do the same thing, which is be secure. So how do you get to the point of being secure? I mean, all my fellow panelists have spoken at length about what all needs to be done. And there is so much more which is available. There are all kinds of organizations, all kinds of agencies that are happy to tell us what needs to be done. CISA, NIST, these are STIG and CIS and certs of different countries are all telling us. It actually boils down to execution. Having heard it all, execute. And keep executing. Keep learning, keep understanding what you are not doing, and keep improving. One of the best ways to improve is to look around you. Virtually every day there's a new exploit, new breach. Understand how that happened, why that happened. Figure out whether it could have happened to you if you were attacked. Immense learning. And you have a choice. You can learn from others' breaches, which is actually almost free of cost, or you can learn from your own breach, which is probably the costliest way to learn and probably the worst way to learn. You don't want to learn from your mistakes. I think I would much prefer to learn from others' mistakes. So that's the sort of option which we have in front of us. But the problem over here is that you have to go to the depths of everything. I mean, take a simple thing like, say, TLS 1.0, 1.1, 1.2 is almost never ending. 1.2, you better have strong ciphers unless you can go to TLS 1.3. But not all your applications may support it for various reasons. So what I'm trying to say over here is that the devil, as usual, is in the details. You have to get down to that level of detail so as to be able to keep the crooks outside. And however much you may not like them, or you have to appreciate their ability to find a way in. I say that security today, particularly in the IT world, is not about doors and windows and putting bars in the windows and trying to keep people out. It is more about trying to make your environment waterproof so that even water cannot seep in. And that's the key thing. How difficult is it to keep water out of your house? And I'm not just talking about rainfall. Somebody pours a mug of water on under your front door, water will come in. So it's actually that, trying to keep your environment watertight.
I think this is beautiful, right? We heard, maybe 30 more seconds, we wrap up. So yeah, we heard, the fact that one thing that is very important is discipline is very important, right? It doesn't matter what you are pursuing, but if you do it in a half-hearted manner, you'd be surprised. And you touched upon an important point about opportunities. So NASSCOM in its survey said that cloud itself will generate around 14 million jobs by 2026. Any guesses in terms of what would be the spend on cloud in India? Any guess? No prizes for that, but at least it will make us believe that we are awake. Any number in billion dollar, it is 13.6 USD billion, right? So that is what they're anticipating. Now, security. What is it? What is the Gartner prediction on security spend in India? Any ideas? It is 4.6 billion USD. So I think that kind of gives understanding, right? I think, we were really fortunate to have a diverse panel like this who shared their views, and we hope that going back at least the basics, right, are clearer to all of us, right? It's not about the destination; it's about the journey. And to start a journey, you have to take one small step, and then the miracle happens. So I'm very sure that the discussion we had today will help you in some ways to make that step forward and move it really, in a firm manner to help your organizations secure. One last thing is, do not believe that I will not be compromised because I'm small, because who will target me? You'll have to understand that every statistics says it is not that the hackers only target the large organizations. Everyone is a target, right? So you have to prepare. So if you're living in a world ki boss, who will compromise me? Mera company chota hai, koi dikhta nahi hai. You are living in some la-la land, right? And you have to wake up. Everybody is a target, right?
So
And the
Kalpesh,
next
if I
thing-
can add something to that.
Yeah.
If I take my water analogy a bit further, just think what happened a few days ago in a city called Dubai. They got flooded. So it's the whole thing. Keep your water out. And to Kalpesh's point, it doesn't matter how big or how small. You live in a hut, you need to keep water out.
Absolutely.
You land in Mumbai, you see in the monsoons this sea of blue tarpaulin sheets.
Absolutely, yes. And you have to prepare. You have to prepare. So Dubai people never understood what is rain. A Mumbai guy would have dealt with it. So you have to be, I think preparation and discipline is where it gets into play. By the way, I just came from Dubai, so I know, I could relate well with, I just landed yesterday. But thank you all for being a wonderful audience. And if there are any questions, I know we are out of time, but if there is any question, I can just we can take one of them. Or let me put a question. Gartner in 2024 has one prediction for cloud. What is that one? Anyone? Everybody has a phone, you could Google it. It says, industry cloud platform. So they're just saying that they see a trend where entire industry, say a BFSI or an insurance or a banking, they would have a common cloud. It's happening in resources. It might happen in other industries also. So look forward to those trends as well. Thank you all for being, a great listener and asking us no questions. So that makes really a great end for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's take one group picture. I will request Mr. Jagat Ram to kindly felicitate all our panel members and the moderator.